Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Howboard Symposium. Let's go ahead and cut that music. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Christian, and I will be your host for this evening, again, on the Howboard Symposium, in case you missed that. And for those that are new, this is a space in which it is just going to be me rambling for an hour on various positions in the board gaming hobby ecosystem. Of course, it is just me particularly, but you are more than welcome to put in your input regarding the show, whether it be just maybe having a discussion about what I talk about in the episode. I pose a question at the end of every episode for people to respond to, and today I think particularly might get some pretty spicy responses. Before we get into the main topic, however, there is a little bit of a preamble, but I will also say that if you do want to send in any input or information or anything of the sort, I do have an email. It is howboardpodcast@gmail.com. If you are interested in sending in any sort of responses to any part of the show, or you just have something you want to say or share or whatnot, if you do send an email, I do advise that if you want it on the show to mention directly. Otherwise, I will not include it for privacy reasons. I will just be reading it and enjoying it and maybe having a conversation. But otherwise, if you state as such that you want it to be mentioned on the show, then I will bring it to the podcast. That being said, the intro for this podcast, as is always the case, is the board game of the week. This segment will never die. I absolutely love it. And for this week, we're going to be taking a look at a very kind of under the radar title that just came out last year, and that is going to be Spooktacular. So I'll give a quick rundown for people that aren't aware of what this is and most likely have not heard of it, because again, this flew very far under the radar during the year of 2025 and for several different reasons, but primarily being the theme is based around kind of campy horror / thriller movies of like the 80s and 90s and even a little bit into the early thousands. Granted, I wasn't alive for most of that, but I have still been able to enjoy the genre as is, and therefore it has been a theme that's been approachable to me. But for a lot of others, may not be quite as enjoyable, or they may not be as enthusiastic about. Now, what is the game actually? And I've had people disagree with me on this, and that's okay. I can understand the disagreement. I think of it as like Baby Root, like My Little Root, you know, like if you took, like, there's My Little Scythe to introduce people to Scythe, especially like children. It's meant to be that more kind of family friendly variant of it. I wouldn't say this is a more family friendly variant, but this is a more beginner friendly variant of Root. Root can get very complex and have some awkward situations in it. This is very straightforward and simple, and there's very few like odd interactions to it. But ultimately it's this very competitive space where all these players, everyone's fighting over this limited resource. In this case, it is victims, or guests as they're called in the game, to score points. Now, they aren't nearly as limited as certain things going on at Root, and it's not as much of a fight over certain spaces as in Root, nor is it as dastardly or as mean, which is why I think it's that nice kind of like game to ease someone into that style of game. It's got enough of the kind of framework there of what you would expect out of something like Root, and again, does very good for introducing somebody to that style of game. And to break it down, like what this actually is you take on the role of one of these monsters, or villains from a creature feature, basically. And you're all coming out of movie screens in this movie theater trying to spook and devour guests. And these guests have 5 different colors. Not that it's important too much, but it is red, green, yellow, purple, and blue. And every time you spook or devour a guest, it is a point. And of course, you're trying to do multiples of those in a turn and like chain off all these crazy combos. There's asymmetric abilities for all the monsters. There's unique turn structures for the monsters. There's unique cards. There's card play for every monster. There's even one that like focuses extra on the card play, and it's like, but there's different tiers to the monsters. They have easy, intermediate, and hard monsters. So, like, if you're just getting introduced to the game, you're going to want to play an easy one. But the thing is, the easy ones do scale. So when you're more experienced, they do also perform a lot better. They're just a lot better for somebody learning for the first time. which is the main reason those tags are there. Like, you can pit an easy versus an expert level monster, and they can perform about equally depending on the player's skill level. That's the important thing. Like, it's a good game for skill expression and like experiencing over time. In the base box, because as of right now there's no expansions for this game, it is for 1 to 5 players. And just out of the box, there are 20 different monsters to play. So tons of variability and replayability. You're going to get a pretty much the same map setup the whole time. Where it's going to differ is like the different monsters setups on their individual character sheets. Each monster is going to have their own different type of setup, that some will put stuff on the board or interact with the board before the game even starts. And it's just a race to 50 points. It's either the 2 end game conditions are someone crossing the 50-point line or running out of movie tickets. And you're going to get movie tickets by devouring an entire set of guests. So every time you get one of each color of guests, you will turn them in. You will spawn 3 new guests into the room with the lowest amount of guests, and you will take a movie ticket. And that movie ticket you keep hidden because it's extra points at the end of the game. So it's kind of this hidden thing. Like, if you have like 2 or 3 people kind of close to each other when the end game is triggered, it can really come down to those movie tickets, because they range anywhere from 4 to 8 points, I believe. So, you know, if I pull 3 movie tickets, but they're all 4s, and somebody else pulls 2 8s, and we were like neck and neck on points on the board before that, they're going to overtake me and win. Like, even if I was a couple points ahead of them, that 16 as opposed to my 12 could be enough to jump them ahead of me. So it's kind of that element of surprise. There's a lot more randomness and chaos than like a typical like Euro type of game or anything. Like, there's a lot of just chaos and randomness to this, but in a controlled enough environment. And really, like, your whole thing is you're just trying to play your monster as best you can. And there are quite a few times where interactions with other players as well as different guests on the board will happen. You know, there's cards that'll move other monsters. You can steal points from other players. There's a lot of different types of interaction in this. And each monster is so unique to one another, but they all share like a lot of these core elements. They're just implemented differently for different monsters. So you actually get as a result, you get a pretty small rule book that gives you the good chunk of stuff you need to know. It's not a super complicated game to learn. It really doesn't take all that long to figure it out. And for most of the niche interactions, they have an FAQ in the book that covers, I'd say, a good amount of it. Some of it you do kind of have to interpret and maybe like house rule on the fly, or just think about it and be like, well, this is how I think this should work, so this is how we're going to play it. There are a little bit of elements of some homeruliness in there and some blurriness, but not in a way that like muddies up the game in any sort of way. And I think it kind of makes a unique experience for different tables. Now, if you're trying to take rules to different tables and other people disagree, that's a little bit more of a problem. But seeing as, again, like I mentioned, this is kind of one of those skill expression type of games, and the more you play it, the more enjoyable it gets as you figure out more things. You find the combos, you find the ins and outs of monsters and how they interact with others. I think it's a lot of fun, especially again with the big mishmash of monsters. You can replay this game for years, and like, it's really surprising because it can be played in like 30 minutes. Like, I did a solo playthrough recording, not to spoil too much, but it only took me half an hour to get through. Like, it was under half an hour, with also like explaining stuff as I went and checking things. Like, for a multiplayer game, like, you have 4 to 5 players, you're probably looking hour and a half. Maybe it's not too bad unless you get a little bit of AP, but this game is actually really streamlined. They did their best to keep the turns quick and snappy and everything easy to understand. And they really did a lot of work to make this a very user and beginner friendly type of game. And even as someone who is in the hobby pretty deep and loves higher tiered, like higher difficulty type of games, this still scratches a really good itch for me in multiple different ways. Of course, the theme is a huge one for me personally. And we'll come back to the theme in a minute, but in terms of like just the amount of brain power to satisfaction ratio this game has, it doesn't take a lot of thought to put in, but the returns on it of you feeling so clever after the fact are very high. And I think it's such a rewarding experience. It's like hitting that slot machine and, you know, winning like every few times, just enough to keep you like really happy. You'll have those turns where you're like, okay, that was not the right move, but then you'll have those really, really good turns where it just all lines up perfectly. And you're like, yes, that is what I set myself up for. This is what I've been building towards. Things are perfect, and it's a really satisfying feeling. Even those games where it's like a landslide blowout win, that's when you can look at the character and be like, maybe this is not my play style. You can kind of push some of the blame of losing onto the monster a little bit, which is the nice thing for me. Someone that doesn't always take losses with the most grace. It's very helpful to be like, maybe this one does not fit my style of gameplay. I'll have to look at something else next time. And I have already played most of the monsters by this point, or at least seen them in play. Let me go ahead and actually check how many plays I have, because now I'm curious. Okay, so as of right now, I have 13 plays, and I have played this up to 3 players. This is one I would say that is technically more ideal at a higher player count. There's several monsters that do a lot better when there's more happening on the board. But even at lower player counts, I can still see that being pretty interesting, as you're trying to find out how these monsters can maximize the lowest amount of potential and try to still come out on top. I think those are very unique. And it's just, again, it's really fun to explore a game like this that has so much openness to it, but in like such a small space where everything is connected enough that you can look at one monster and be like, okay, that's how this guy works, so this is going to be pretty similar to how this guy works, but it's still a different way. And like you can kind of reference off of other monsters, but they're still different enough to have their own type of flavor. And it's really nice and refreshing just as a style of game. No hate to my Cole Wehrle fans out there, no hate to my Root fans. I personally prefer this over Root every day of the week. But for the people that like Root, I think this would even be a good game for you. Like even people that have like a recurring Root group. I think this is a good one to throw in the mix as well. Like maybe if you're not feeling Root that week, or, you know, you want a little bit of variance, or maybe it was like a back-to-back feature, like this is your warm-up game, and then you get into Root for the actual meat and potatoes and really diving into something. I think like they're a good coexistence with one another, but also as a stepping stone from one to the other. So it's, again, that nice kind of balance. I really love Spooktacular. This is going to live on my shelf for a good while. I would love to play it more often. I play it solo as much as I can. It's not the best solo mode ever, because currently only one of the monsters can be played as the bot. But to my knowledge, there is someone in the community that is actually going around and creating bots for other monsters and like thoroughly testing them and making sure they're feasible and good for solo, because it's somebody that actually wants the solo mode to be good, and I'm very, very happy about it. But again, the base solo mode is a little bit limited in scope. You're only seeing how one monster that you pick is going to interact with the same other monster every time, and you can't play that monster because of course it's being occupied by the Automa, which doesn't even function the same as the actual one. It's very different in how it plays. But I still think it's good. Like if you just want to learn a character and understand how it works independently, that's not a bad thing either, especially if you want to start digging into some of those advanced ones, but you don't want to be like in the middle of a big game and not knowing what you're doing with this complex character. I definitely understand using the solo mode for that. I think it's great for that. Even for a few plays, the solo mode is not bad. Every now and then I get a hankering for just playing it, and I'm like, you know what? I don't even care. I will fight this bot just because I really want to play this game. And it's not a bad bot. It's just a matter of it can get kind of stale because it is like the same thing pretty much every time. It doesn't always do the exact same things. There is randomization to it. But you know what to expect out of it, and it kind of weakens the experience a little bit. You would like that variance in different types of face-offs, which is very important. But I digress. That is going to cover it for the board game of the week. Let's go ahead and skip on into the main topic for today. And if you couldn't tell by the title, this week we are going to be talking about my hot takes in the board gaming space. That's right, we're going to get a little spicy, and I expect a lot of people to disagree with this, and maybe even some people to agree. And that's why I put the big preface at the beginning regarding the email, because I feel like there's going to be people that are going to have some words to say on this. So for my for my non-YouTube listeners, there's a way to contact me regarding the takes that I am about to confront you with, because I know at least a few of these are really not going to make people happy. So let's go ahead and start diving into them. All right. So for those that have listened to the podcast prior, of course, this structure is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to have one main topic that I'm going to be talking about for the majority of this episode. Instead, we're going to have a bunch of different subtopics, and I'm going to try not to ramble on each individual one for too long. But I'm probably not going to end up getting through all of these because I have a lot of hot takes. So we're going to get through at least like the really hotter ones, and hopefully not get a little too crazy. And the first one for today is that trick takers and lane battlers are not interesting. I'm sorry for my card game fans out there. They are extremely, extremely boring. You can split them up whatever way you want. Ultimately, each of them are the same game. Who has the bigger number? Like, you can try to innovate on these as much as you want. And again, these are my personal takes. This is not objective. This is completely subjective opinions. So I'm going to clarify that right out the gate. But both of these are very limited in their design space and scope, and I have yet to be wowed by any of them. With one exception, the only game I would say out of those two genres that has had any sort of impact on me as a design, as a game, as something that I would actively want to really play and enjoy is Old King's Crown. And that's because there are so many things around that game that are not just lane battling. It's the cards that you have to play in order to lane battle have a lot of uniqueness to them and a lot of different things going on. I know that Arcs would kind of fit into this category as well for the trick taking side of it. I have played Arcs, and genuinely, I am honestly not impressed. I think out of that entire game, the trick taking is my least favorite part of it, because of how much, I mean, obviously because of how much it influences the game. I don't like that as a mechanism by which to describe how much a player can do on any given round. I am not a very huge fan of that design philosophy, especially given like the insane amount of randomness to it. There's very little strategy in trick takers. There's maybe a touch of it in some lane battlers like Air, Land, and Sea, but I honestly don't care for that either. There's so much openness and randomness to it in a way that just doesn't feel fun. It feels like just a programmatic thing that it's like you get the hand you're dealt and that's it. Like to me, it's the same as playing poker, but less interesting, because you're not betting on anything. You're literally just playing it out. And I don't know, to me, there's nothing exciting with either of those. They seem very, very dry, very determined from the beginning without you even knowing it, in a way that's not exciting or thrilling. Like when you see the outcome, it's just a disappointment. Like you can feel like maybe you put in the best work that you could, but it amounted to nothing a lot of the time. Like even if you win, it's usually pretty hollow because they're just so... I know I'm sounding like such a hater right now, but this is a critique I've had on my mind forever because I see so many people raving like there's a new trick taker every week. And I look at it and it's just the same game with a different font every time. And it actually kind of drives me nuts. I don't see the appeal in either of these types of games. Again, like I said, outside of the Old King's Crown, I'll play a game of Arcs, but kind of begrudgingly. And I apologize to my dad because I know he's listening to this and Arcs is one of his favorite games. He already knows that I don't really care for it. And a good chunk of it is because of the trick taking aspect. I will play a game or two of Sail every now and then because I do own it. And it's not like the worst game ever, but it's still just not great because I don't think trick taking as a genre or as like a base mechanism has anything interesting to add to the gaming community. There's so many better mechanisms by which we can enjoy the gaming space. But again, if it's something that you're into, by all means, that's totally fine. It might be part of because how I was raised and the type of games I was raised on. I wasn't playing a lot of trick takers growing up, so they weren't something I had in my radar, and I was first introduced to them through modern board gaming, and they've been nothing but a disappointment to me since I've gotten in. And it's really, really sad. I don't trick takers I hate or I dislike more than lane battlers. Lane battlers sometimes I can find a little bit of interest in, but overall, like even if you try to make the trick taker cooperative or if you make it full on competitive, no matter which way you try to spin it or implement it into something, as a whole, as a mechanism, I just disenjoy it entirely. Lane battlers, again, there are some minor exceptions, but for the most part, when it's like I play a card, it does a quick little thing. You play a card, it does a quick little thing. But at the end of the day, it's who has the higher value in this row wins it. To me, that's just boring, bland, and dry, and there's nothing really like, yeah, sure, you can start playing stuff over here, so then now I have to concentrate some energy over there too to not lose it. But it's like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a proper tug of war, like that type of game is supposed to. It feels really disconjointed, very loose, very odd. I don't care for it. You know, even though it's only 3 theaters that you're dealing with, just the way that you have to approach it, and the fact that you're gonna have cards that only fit into certain lanes, or you can on average cards that'll fit into certain lanes, and then if you want to play another one, you have to play it face down for a base value. I just don't care at all. I just don't care for that style. It to me, it really bothers me. I think that's where the old King's Crown also differs in the lane battling mechanic, is that you can play any card in any lane. You don't got to deal with this stupid suit stuff. Suits just are, I think that's what it is. Between trick takers and lane battlers, I think it's the suit aspect of it is what I really, really don't like. And we'll just kind of leave it at that, because my number 2 hot take kind of ties into this first one in a little regard. And that is that the big 3, Cole Wehrle, Uwe Rosenberg, and Reiner Knizia, are all overrated designers. Yeah, I can hear the keyboards clacking away on that one. I'll give you a second. I'll let you formulate your thoughts on that and start typing it out. This, to me, again, is another design philosophy thing. Cole Wehrle, I'll touch on him briefly because he's the easiest one to get through. I just don't agree with his style of confrontational games. Again, feel free to disagree. I know that Arcs and Root are beloved by many, even Oath. So many people love those games. I just I can deal with a confrontational game. I can enjoy games where I'm getting into battle with other players and whatnot. Cole Wehrle games do it in such a way that I just do not find fun. It is nothing but frustrating. Even if I'm on the winning side of a situation, I feel frustrated for the other person because I'm like, that's stupid that I'm allowed to do this. And I just don't care for the way those games play out at all. And they all feel very similar. They all have that super swingy, nonsensical randomness, just absolute blowout plays in every single game. None of them feel for some reason, to me, none of those games feel balanced at all, and they are very hard for me to enjoy. So there's that aspect as well, on top of the trick taking part for Arcs, for a reason that I just don't like that game. I know that Cole Wehrle's a bit more polar in terms of these 3 designers. You either love him or you hate him. I am on the side of, I don't hate him. I like him as a person. He's got some fun takes on board games and whatnot. I do not like his game designs. That is where I struggle. And it might just be something that I just personally do not blend with, will never blend with, and just cannot blend with. I don't know what it is about his games specifically, but I just cannot get into them. I cannot enjoy them and have a good time, even when I'm winning. It's rough. Uwe, I'm sorry to all you beige lovers out there. You need to get some color. I'm sorry. I'm doing personal attacks. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be doing that. I apologize. But in all honesty, Uwe's games are so bland and lacking color. I feel like I'm in the Great Depression anytime I look at one of his boxes. Again, a couple exceptions for that. There's always exceptions, but at the same time, a lot of his games feel very, they're all that similar kind of really tight resource management, and you get punished if you don't do it frame perfect. And I can see the appeal to that. For some people, it's a game that you really want to master. But for me, the games that I love to play, that I really want to master, aren't ones that punish me. They just don't reward me as well. There needs to be a scaling system for rewards. You can still do okay and get somewhat decent rewards, but when you start doing really good, that's when you get the really good points. That's what I look for in games. I don't want ones that are just gonna punish me for not doing things absolutely perfect. And that's another one I just don't enjoy. I can deal with interaction, even if it's from the board or from the game. I can deal with little interruptions or things, obstacles in my way as I go. But when it's a matter of I don't do things exactly the way I was supposed to, and I was one thing short, suddenly I'm suffering, and it just makes subsequent rounds even worse. I don't like that idea. And again, the games are so colorless, so bland, so boring. The only Uwe game that I actually own, but will honestly probably not really play a whole lot, is Patchwork. And that's just because that one does kind of break the mold of his typical designs a little bit. It's not like Black Forest. It's not like, Atiwa. It's not like Feast for Odin. This has kind of got some similarities to Feast for Odin, but it's still, they just feel so dull. Like I don't see the appeal in his games. His resource systems are far too tight, far too restrictive. They don't feel open enough. And on the ones where he loosens up on that, he goes like too far the other direction. And like by the end of the game, like before the last round, you've done everything you really could do. Like Atiwa was one of those. You get to the last round of the game, you're like, but I've already completed everything I needed to. So why am I still playing? And it's just, they're uninteresting. Now, Reiner Knizia, this is probably going to be the most controversial take on this entire video. 3/4 of Reiner Knizia's games are identical. And then there's like 2 other groups of 10% that are identical. And then 1 group of 5% of his games are identical. Like he basically has 4 different games that he just makes on a loop with new art and like slightly tweaked variables, just slightly. You know, you can look at like Mille Fiori, you can look at Rebirth, you can look at Gazebo, you can look at so many of his games. Oh, what's the other one? Through the Desert. They're almost exactly the same game. You place a tile on your turn, and then you pass it to the next person. Sometimes you draw one. They're all so, like, you're just doing that to score points at the end of the game. They're all so similar to one another. Even in what you're trying to do with the tiles, a lot of the time, they're pretty close to each other. Like, you can pretty much have a scale, like a gradient of just like the minute differences and tweaks that he makes between the games, but almost all of those are the same game. You know, and then you'll go to like the party games, and those are almost very similar to each other. And then like the card games, it goes on and on. And I mean, for crying out loud. Okay, so this one, this next game I'm about to talk about, yes, I did back, as a disclaimer, I did back this game because I'm excited for it. But the guy reinvented Yahtzee and called it Eureka. He literally took Yahtzee and made it a campaign game for one person only. I'm sorry, with Reiner Knizia, there is no original thought. It is just minor reimplementations and tweaking. That's all he does. It's like he's had this one game in his mind all of his life, and he just does minor tweaks on it until he gets it perfect. And that is all Reiner Knizia does. With a few exceptions, again, of those other, he's got like the party games and the card games. And like, that's pretty much it. I mean, now he's doing solo games. Like Eureka was probably the first solo game I've heard of from Knizia that was like a solo only game. And the guy has done hundreds of board games. I mean, at that point, how are you creating anything truly original without just reiterating on previous designs? Again, I'm sorry. This whole episode is like kind of a chance for me to just rant about all the takes I have on this hobby that people are not going to agree with. Because where I am is like an echo chamber, and I get pretty much agreement on a lot of these takes, except for, of course, the Cole-Worthy one. My dad will disagree with that one heartedly, and that's fine. He's allowed to have that opinion. But all 3 of these designers are severely overrated in the space. It's a lot of, to me, it seems like a lot of groupthink. Everybody just kind of dog piles on these things, and they jump on them, and they're like, oh my God, there's so much of this, so it's got to be perfect. Or the Cole-Worthy one's kind of a phenomenon to me. I don't quite understand that one, but at the same time, like, okay, fair enough. People are different than me. I am most likely the oddball. But with Uwe and Reiner Knizia, it feels like those 2 are mostly popular because of their sheer quantity of games and nothing else. I mean, a broken clock is right twice a day. So, of course, you design that many games, you're going to have a couple of hits. And that's, to me, pretty much all they got. The only 2 Knizia games that I've ever had interest in are Gazebo and Eureka. And again, Eureka is just because I love Yahtzee. I grew up on Yahtzee, and I wanted an excuse to play that solo. So that one's special. But Gazebo is just like all those other tile laying games I was talking about, but to me it's the most concise, the most well thought out one to date, and that is why I wanted it. Even just this year we had one come out. What was it? Gold Country by Bitewing, I think. Let me go look it up here. Yeah, 2026. Yep, Reiner Knizia. And that's a re-implementation of Spectaculum. It literally is admittedly a recreation of another game. That I'm guessing, let me check actually. Did he do that one as well? Yep, that was also a Reiner Knizia design. So right there, 2012 game Spectaculum was re-implemented and recreated into Gold Country, released this year. So 14 years later, re-implements a game and re-releases it with a different theme. I'm sorry to bring this out to people. I know I sound so vicious right now, and I'm trying not to be. This is a very hot take for me. It gets me really heated. Knizia just copies himself, and when he runs out of that, he copies other people. And I know there's like hardly anything as such as an original thought nowadays, but this is so blatant to me. It's not even like cherry picking ideas and putting it together into one thing. It is literally just taking one thing and then changing a couple of small details. It is literally, hey, you can copy my homework but change it a little bit so it's not obvious. That's what he does. And I'm so sorry to people that like Knizia designs. If that's your type of game, then Knizia is the perfect designer for you, because that's his thing. That's his jam. That's what you're gonna get. So enjoy it. It is personally not my thing, and Gazebo is the one time I have found it to be good. So that being said, let's go and get on to the next one before I spend all episode on this. Also, kind of along with that topic, though, just because a game is popular does not make it good. I know this is probably a sentiment shared by a lot of the community, at least people think, but if you actually go ahead and look at the BGG Top 100, let me actually get this pulled up here so I'm not just spewing stuff out of my butt. Okay, so I am now currently looking at the top 100 games, and of course, a lot of these do shift around from time to time. First of all, anyone's favorite board game of all time, or like top board games of all time, is always going to be a completely subjective matter. So to say that any of these are objectively where they should be is false, because it's all based on geek ratings, which, as we all know, can be a lot of the time misleading. There's a lot of different misleading aspects about BGG, and you got to take everything you see here with a grain of salt. But the number 2 rated game of all time is Ark Nova, and I personally think this game is okay at best. Like, I love Euro games. I am a big Euro enjoyer. I love different unique mechanisms in Euro games. For me, this one is extremely just meh. Like, sure, if it's brought to me, I'll play it, but I'm never going to suggest it. I'm never going to be really thrilled about it. It's just kind of okay. So to say it's the second best board game of all time definitely feels like crowd hype to me. I don't think it's at all accurate or a good representation of the community as a whole. Again, these are all off of geek ratings. The average rating for Ark Nova is an 8.54. I would give this game probably a 6.5 or a 7. Like, it is not... It's just over a 5. I think I probably actually would even push it closer to like a 6 flat, just because, again, it's okay. Like, the one unique mechanism in it is interesting, I guess, a little bit, but that's pretty much about all there is to it. I don't really like how that mechanism interacts with the game as a whole, and I just don't think it's overall that fantastic. And then you go down a few spaces here at number 7 is Twilight Imperium 4th edition, released in 2017. Has an average rating of has an average rating of 8.56. So it actually on average rates higher than Ark Nova just a little bit, but it has a lot less voters. But this is a game that we're talking about literally has a playtime listed as 240 to 480 minutes. That is 3 to 6 hours. And I've heard of games of TI4 going on way longer than that, with a 4.36 out of 5 complexity rating. I can't see that being enjoyable for most people I know. Like, I know a few people that are really into TI4, and that's great. It's one of those games that, like, when you get into it, I could see it being a great time. It's for 3 to 6 players, and community ranks it as best at 6. I don't know about you. A lot of the time for me, getting a group of 4 or more players is honestly hard enough. I struggle to get even that many players. So to try to get on average a group of 5 to 6 players that are going to consistently play this game and really enjoy it thoroughly, to me, that's a really tough sell. That's like an impossible sell. And it's just things like that. Like, you go through this top 100, most of my favorite games of all time aren't even on this top 100. I think we actually don't even see one that's in my top 20 of all time until number 16 is the first slot on the BGG 100 list that is actually on my top 20, and that is Slay the Spire. And I think that's actually around the same spot on my list, if I remember right. I go down, I don't find another one until spot 26 is Scythe. So I'm at 2 games right now. Let me keep going. Well, then some games that I really detest, like Root I talked about earlier, is on here at number 34. I absolutely do not like that game, and a lot of people have problems with it as well. Like there's a whole it's hard. I'm trying to think of the word on that, but there's a conflict on that. People disagree on that all the time, and here it is at number 34 in the top 100 of all time list. Sky Team, a game that I actually got rid of because I didn't like it that much, is up here at 32. Wingspan made it to slot 38. I gave that to my parents because I did not like that at all, but I enjoyed Wormspan. Things like that. Like I can keep scrolling down. There's other games on here I've played, did not like, got rid of, or still have, but just don't want anymore. But then more of my games that I actually do like and, are in my top games of all time don't even make a slight appearance on this. There are so many games, like even Spooktacular that I mentioned in the intro, that will just fly under the radar and not get the attention that they probably deserve. And also, again, all of these takes are completely subjective. Like nobody's top 100 games is going to look the same as someone else's. There's always going to be at least a little bit of variance. Even with couples, there's going to be variance in the game all the time. There's going to be variance in those top 100 lists. You can't try to define that by just pure ratings alone. Again, on something like BGG, and no hate to BGG, I love the site. It's a great resource. But the top 100 list is so misleading and has a lot of problems just inherently. It maybe is okay as a reference point, but if it's somebody looking to get into the hobby, trying to just look at that and say, oh, this must be good, must be awesome games, these are clearly what I'm probably going to want, I'm going to give you a fair warning right now. Do not go off of that list. Do research and then go from there. That's where I think you need to be with that. And also as well, I'll admit I'm kind of a cult of the new type of person. I see new games and those are the ones that I typically fall in love with and really enjoy because I just got into the hobby in the last few years. It makes me a lot more attracted to newer stuff because that's what I was basically born into the hobby around. Not saying the older games don't have their place. Older games can definitely have their place. I can see things like Carcassonne or, just older titles in general. I haven't explored too many of them, but I can see them having their own place in different people's collections and in their space of the hobby. So just following the cult of the new is a big struggle. Like if you're like me and you watch a lot of different board gaming content, a lot of the time all you're going to be seeing is the new stuff because all of the old stuff has already been talked about prior. So why cover it anymore? And I'm trying not to worry about that too much with my content. I'll cover games that have been out for a few years now at the very least because that's what I have and it's what I want to talk about. But for a lot of channels that like to do this as a job, it makes more sense. They're going to need to do stuff on the newer games to stay relevant, stay fresh, keep up with what's going on in the space. I can't blame them for that whatsoever, but it does cause problems for people that are in the hobby that want to explore deeper into what it can offer. And sometimes there are games that are older that are going to be a better option to fit what you're looking for than the game you're currently looking at from that new video. So that is a good thing to keep in mind. Again, popularity does not equate to a game being good. For example, like the Don't Starve board game that just went live on Kickstarter, I think it was a couple months ago. I was kind of looking at it, and mostly just because of the IP and everyone was talking about it and getting very excited about it. But the more I dug into it, I was like, this game looks boring. There is very little to offer in this game. And again, it was another one of those, it had a unique mechanism, but not really interesting gameplay to it. And so ultimately I decided pretty much immediately, like, no, I'm not even touching this game with a 10-foot pole. But I know a lot of people did back it probably just for the IP alone and maybe for the small promise of that mechanism and thinking that's cool. And I just don't think it had enough to deliver on anything really important. So I was very reluctant to even touch that game. I'm going to be quite honest. So again, just because a game is popular and being talked about a lot or is high up on the BGG 100 list, it does not equate to it being good whatsoever. Not to say that there aren't good games there in those spaces, but that is something for you to determine as an individual, not just take for what it is at face value. There needs to be some personal input into that as well to determine if that's actually the case or not. And probably the last one I'm going to talk about for today, I might actually have to break this into a 2-part episode because I have so much to talk about. The next one is shelves of shame or opportunity should not exist. I think you should either own the game to play it or enjoy its presence. And what I mean by this is, if you're someone who likes to play board games, accept that fact and be ready that when you get a new game, you should be playing it so you don't feel like you wasted your money. Because I know there's so many people that will go look at their shelf of shame, as it's named that for a reason. Now, I've seen people name it the shelf of opportunity, and kudos to them. I appreciate that mindset shift. I have no problem with that whatsoever. What I do have a problem with is being like having this subconscious notion in the back of your head about an unplayed game, and kind of, again, subconsciously being upset about that fact when it's a matter of just doing it and changing it. Like, I know it's a mindset thing to overcome. Sometimes, you know, a new experience can be daunting and scary until you like actually do it. I totally get that feeling. I am a person that struggles with that all the time. With games, though, I think like if you're buying a game to play it, you should be excited to play it. If it's a game that you are afraid to open up and start playing with, or even reading the rule book or getting familiar with it in any regard, you probably should not have bought that game. Hindsight 2020 in that case, but if you do not have the mental fortitude to be able to go and open that game and start learning it and trying to play it, I think you probably should not have gotten that game. On the other hand, it is good to admit when you are a collector and you bought a game because you simply want to have it around and you have no plans to play it. I think trying to live in the middle ground of those two is where the danger starts to happen and feelings get hurt. Again, if you have a game on your shelf and you feel this sense of dread about playing it, about actually opening it up, taking it out of the shrink and playing it for the first time, you either need to admit that was a bad purchase, or push yourself to play it, or admit that you were simply a collector in this instance and you just wanted the game around. You have no actual intention of playing it. I think trying to live in this middle ground of not sure what you have that game for is dangerous and can lead to some bad paths. Again, if you're a collector, you need to be pretty open and upfront about that, or with that about yourself, because that can lead to some pretty bad railways later on, where you're finding yourself in this loophole of just buying stuff and then never playing it. And before you know it, you've got like 15, 20 games racked up that you've never even taken out of the shrink. And then you feel nothing but guilt about it. If you can admit to yourself that you're a collector and you're just collecting those games to enjoy their presence and keep them in shrink because you like having them around, then that takes the weight off of your conscience so quickly. But if you're someone that plans to play them, then please, by all means, do your best to get them played. Like, I know that circumstances and life gets in the way and it doesn't always seem feasible. Trust me, you can find the opportunity to get them played. And again, if not, then maybe that one's not right for you. It doesn't fit your circumstances. It doesn't fit your life situation. That might just not be the right game for you, and you might need to offload it and get rid of it to someone else if you're just not going to be able to make it work. It's a hard line to draw, and that's a very drastic take. I will gladly admit to that. But I am of the mindset that I am a guy who loves to play games. So every time I get a game, I play it instantly. Like, I just got Daily Weather yesterday. I've already played it 4 times because I was trying to beat the same challenge and I did not do it. And I'm going to play it again tonight because I do want to play that every day. But also just today, I got my copy of The Old King's Crown, and I'm going to be putting together the insert and sleeving it tonight and reading the rulebook so that tomorrow I can turn around and play a 3-player game right away, because I just want to get it played. I want to know what the game is like. I want to have the experience. That's what I bought it for. Granted, it's a beautiful game. The art is fantastic. I didn't just buy it for its looks, though. I bought it because I wanted to play it. I wanted the experience out of it. So that's where my thoughts on that boil down to, is know what you're buying a game for. Do you want it for the aesthetics? Do you want it for the comfort of having it around? Or do you want it for the experiences that you're going to get out of it by actually playing it and busting it open? So I will leave my hot takes there, because we're not even halfway through them right now. And again, I have so many more thoughts on all these. And once again, if you have your own thoughts in response to any of these takes, it is howboredpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to send in any responses and have any clapbacks to any of my takes here, you are fully welcome to disagree or agree with me in any which way. I am very open to conversation. I will not judge you or come at you in any way if you disagree with my takes. I will accept your responses with open arms. and not judge them whatsoever, because I appreciate discussion in this space. And if someone can convince me on any of these takes otherwise, I will admit to being wrong about it, or even just, come to the matter of, okay, that is just how I feel about it. And that is totally fine. I can be different in this scenario. I don't have to be the end all be all take. I don't have to be the voice of everybody. This is just a man going on a podcast by himself and rambling to himself mostly about what he thinks about a hobby. So I am not taking any of this personally. Again, if you have any disagreements whatsoever, feel free to send them over and we can have a discussion about it. And I'm totally fine with that. I am not going to be hurt whatsoever if people disagree with me. I do, like, as much as I say that I do have an echo chamber in my life, there are plenty of times where these takes will get disagreements. So it's not like I'm a stranger to that either. So that being said, we are to the last section of the episode now. We are going to be closing out here with a question of the day and then just kind of chatting a little bit before we go. So today's question: what board game hot takes do you have? And again, mind you, this could possibly be for a future episode because I'm not done talking about my hot takes, oddly enough. But I would love to hear your hot takes for the board gaming hobby. I've heard some pretty spicy ones around the internet, and I'm very curious to see what you guys have to think. So feel free to send those in. Again, if you don't want them discussed on the podcast, let me know. Or if you want them discussed on the podcast, let me know. Just let me know either way if you send in an email. If you want to keep it totally between us, that is perfectly fine. I will not blast your email or your responses anywhere if you do not want me to. I just like having discussion. I'm very passionate about this hobby. I like being with the community and around the community and interacting with everybody. It's almost as much fun as playing the games themselves. I'm sorry, I'm a solo gamer, so I have to say almost. But that being said, yeah, what kind of hot takes do you guys have? I'm very, very curious. Now, for kind of wrapping up the episode here, I just kind of want to talk about playing games on repeat, because lately I have been playing quite a bit of Deep Regrets, as some, well, not really long-time listeners, but people who've been listening for at least a few episodes now know I have recently gotten my copy of Deep Regrets, including the Even Deeper Regrets and Shallow Regrets. Shallow Regrets Button Shy game and Even Deeper Regrets expansion. And I've been going on a little bit of a heyday. So I got that actually at the start of the month. I want to say on June 5th is when my copy arrived, somewhere around there. It might have been the week prior. I don't remember exactly. But I've gotten it within the last full month, and I have already played it 8 times. I plan on doing the 9th play tonight. This is being recorded June 25th, for those that are curious, of the day before this podcast is going out. I've already played it 8 times. I plan to play it a 9th tonight and then do my 10th play tomorrow, because it is part of my 10x10 challenge. And of those 10 plays, if all goes according to plan, 2 of them will have been multiplayer, 1 at 2 player, 1 at 3, and the other 8 will have all been solo. Kind of to prove a point, but also because I've genuinely been enjoying it. When I talked about that game a couple episodes ago, I mentioned that the solo mode was not a lot of people's favorites. I personally have been really, really enjoying it, and being 7 plays deep at the current moment, it's been a ton of fun. I like trying to discover all the fish, and even like coming across ones that I've already caught again and be like, okay, I'm going to use this for its maximum value, even if it kind of makes me suffer a little bit now. I know how much it'll help me later. And just being able to interact with the fish that I already know are in there and what they do, I think has been a ton of fun. But playing a game on repeat is not something I do often. So I think finding one that has me this comfortable with playing it so frequently has been really refreshing. Like, I've had games in the past, Ostia being one of them, where like I'll play it once a week, and like that was pretty much my max frequency. You know, I didn't tend to do a lot of, oh, let's re-rack this game and play it again, or like, this was great, my brain's a little burnt, but I want to play it again tomorrow. I haven't really had that a whole lot with games. Deep Regrets is one I keep coming back to, and I am actually really quite enjoying it very thoroughly. Because it is such a simple experience. It's hard to say that it's cozy, but it's like comfortable, because it's nothing too hard or complicated to get into, but it's got it's got enough enjoyment to it. And I find it just relaxing in an odd sort of way. Just kind of doing these numbers calculations and hunting around for the fish that I haven't found yet. I'm down to like a couple fish in each category is all I'm missing for the most part. And I'm actually getting really close to finishing my solo playthrough for the base game, and then I'll move on to the expansion later, which I'm actually very excited for. I think there's going to be some really unique fish in there that I'm looking forward to discovering. And all in all, it's been interesting to have a game that I've been playing on repeat enough, but haven't really been getting burned out on it. And I'm hoping the Daily Weather is kind of another one of those two that I can play it daily, as is implied by the name. It's actually a game that plays off of the current date, which I'm actually quite fascinated by. I need to get better at it though, because I am failing so bad. I still haven't even gotten to scoring in that game, but I'm hoping that both of those are games that I can enjoy in the long haul. And granted, I don't expect to play Deep Regrets as frequently forever, but it's a new game. It's in front of me. I'm really wanting to enjoy and explore it. So I do expect to slow down on it a bit here in the near future. I've already kind of started slightly slowing down on it, spacing my plays out by a few days and whatnot. That first week or two that I had it, though, it was like every day to every other day I was playing it almost. Well, it's obviously not that frequently if I've only played it 8 times, but I've played it quite a bit since I've gotten it. And it's such a short amount of time. Like, I don't think I've ever, out of a medium-ish game, played it this frequently inside of a month. I could do it with card games, but usually not with this size of game. I don't play it this often. So it's been, again, really refreshing to have a game that I don't mind doing that with. And I wouldn't mind taking that philosophy to other games as well. Like with my 10x10 challenge, it kind of forced me into that a little bit. I almost got to that point with Knitting Circle because I just wanted that game off my list and I wanted it to be done with. It's an okay game, but I didn't want to drag that one out. So I was okay with just kind of trying to speed through it. But I wouldn't mind seeing if I could do that with maybe a few other games, playing them a bit more frequently to get more in depth with them and kind of keep more of the details soaked into my brain. So I'm not as spaced out between plays and kind of have to refresh myself on a few things. If I can keep that stuff just fresh in my head and play back to back a little bit more often to really get a good experience with these games, I think I would really like to do that. And that's kind of what a 10x10 is ideally good for. But a lot of the time you kind of space it out. Like I'll do this game this week, this game next week, and kind of break it up a little bit. So you're not just hammering down on the same game, but I like the idea. And I think Old King's Crown is going to be a good one for that as well. Because that's another one of those skill expression type of games that the more you play it, the more interesting I think it's going to get. And so I am definitely looking forward to all of these games individually, and I gotta kind of figure out what other games I might like to do this with. Obviously, Ostia is like a no-brainer for me because I love Ostia, but I don't know if that would be as easy for me to do like that, play it from one day to the next or a couple days apart or whatever, because I do kind of like getting a break on that one. So that might be a bit tough. I am getting Sweetlands later this year, and that is on my 10x10 as well. So I might be playing that in almost that kind of frequency, which that one I'm honestly kind of looking for. That one I might even just set aside a day and be like, okay, I'm just going to play this like 2 or 3 times straight because I really want to explore this game. And I think that Sweetlands is going to have a lot of really cool stuff to deliver to me. So I am actually quite excited about that. As far as other games that size, for a while there, I thought Mycelia was going to be another one of those games. It was a strategic mushroom game. I thought that was going to be one of them. It's still a good game, but I don't think it has quite that same level of skill expression where exploring it deeper is really going to do a whole lot. Mad Kala is one I would love to play more frequently because it is that's a much lighter game and it's really easy to get to the table. But I would love to play that more. Lacuna is kind of another one of those, but again, like super light, super quick. That's not hard to get to the table. Kelp is one I definitely love, but I don't get to play 2-player all the time. So obviously I would prefer something that can do solo, would be ideal for looking at something to play on repeat that I can like really dive deep into. Unfortunately, a lot of those are kind of multiplayer games where you're going to find a lot of that. But you know, I think just trying to get really intimate with a board game like that would be quite a bit of fun. I had a little stint of somewhat doing that with Final Girl, but that's a bit different because you're using different feature films with different killers, different locations, and that on its own can start mixing up a lot of things and kind of muddying the waters on that. So it's not really getting intimate with the game as much as you are exploring the vastness of it at a very surface level. So I don't know. I guess if you're gonna send an email, also let me know on that. What are some games that you really like diving deep into or want that more intimate personal experience with? Let me know. I'm very curious on that because I know I've got more in my collection that I could definitely do that with and start to kind of really go down into the depths with. Endeavor is probably one of them. Like that is pretty much a strictly medium weight level game in terms of complexity, for understanding the rules and everything. But in terms of actual gameplay, it is very challenging, especially when playing solo. I think competitive, it's not going to be nearly as bad, but the solo and co-op modes are very, very difficult. And I do have the expansion later this year, which is supposed to help out with those modes. So maybe it wouldn't be bad to keep myself fresh up on that, and start like kind of figuring out the ins and outs of it. Cause it's trying to complete enough of those challenges to actually win the game is not easy. In terms of a co-op game, that is the hardest co-op game I've ever played, just because the challenges are so hard to meet. But I think that's honestly probably gonna do it for today, guys. I think that's really all I got for you. Again, let me know any of your hot takes. I will probably end up doing another episode of this just to cover more of what I got going on. I won't do it back to back. I'll give you a little bit of time between. But for now, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I always love talking to you, and I would love to hear back from you guys as well. So again, howboredpodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to send in any responses whatsoever. But until next time, thank you guys again so much for listening, and I hope to talk to you next time as well. Happy gaming out there.